I noticed the Most High in Isaiah 1 verse 13, he says, "Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons and Sabbaths." Now that doesn't mean that the new moon is a Sabbath. It's a day of assembly. These are days of assembly. These are days of sacrifice and worship. It says, "The calling of assemblies I cannot away with. It is iniquity. Even the solemn meeting." Verse 14, "Your new moons and your appointed feasts my soul hateth. They are a trouble to me. I am weary to bear them." Now some have used Isaiah 1:13 and 14, especially Isaiah 1:13, to say that the new moons are Sabbath. When the Most High here, he makes distinction between the new moons and Sabbath. All right, so that argument doesn't stand up. The Most High is simply talking about how in this time, the days when Isaiah was prophesying, he's talking about how Judah had gone astray and began to make traditions of men. Even in the days of Messiah, he got on them about that, about the traditions of men, precepts of men. Okay. Here's another one. Isaiah 66 verse 23. It says, "And it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me, saith Yahweh." Now, does that mean that the new moon is Sabbath? No. What he's saying is, from it shall come to pass that from one new moon to another, that means every month, those gates will be open. You'll be able to come and worship the Most High. And then every week, and from one Sabbath to another, shall all flesh come to worship before me. Now, these are the arguments that I've seen that by those who attempt to support a lunar Sabbath doctrine. They can't quote the Torah, so they take scriptures from the prophets and that they don't understand and twist them. And they do a terrible job of that, because you can read this for what it says, and it clearly does not say that the new moon is a Sabbath. You will not find that anywhere in Scripture. We've already shown from the authoritative sources that the new moon is not a Sabbath. Okay? Now here's another one. In 2 Kings chapter 4 verse 23, it says, "And he said, Wherefore wilt thou go to him today?" Or, "Wherefore wilt thou go to him today? It is neither new moon nor Sabbath." And she said, "It shall be well." Now this is when they were talking about going to inquire of a prophet. All right. And it was a custom in Israel for people to gather on the Sabbath and visit. Same on the new moon. It was a custom, and they didn't want to go and disturb the prophet without it being a Sabbath or a new moon. They didn't just want to pop up at the home of the prophet. So you can clearly see the new moon is not a Sabbath. It never was. It never will be. It was never commanded to be a Sabbath. Scriptures like this, another one that they use to try to deceive, Ezekiel 46 verse 1, "Thus saith Yahweh, mighty one, the gate of the inner court that looketh toward the east shall be shut 6 working days, but on the Sabbath it shall be open, and in the day of the new moon it shall be open." So people take this and say, see, the new moon is a Sabbath because the gates are open. Well, the gates had to be open because sacrifices were being done. These were days of assembly and worship. So that makes no sense. But these are more lies. But you can clearly see there is nowhere in the Torah where the new moon is to be kept as a Sabbath. There is nowhere in the prophets where the new moon is to be kept as a Sabbath. And those who forbid others from working on the Sabbath, as in Amos 8 and 5, they were being condemned for those practices. They were also setting their own feast days, which is something that you can't do. You have to live by every word that proceeds out of the mouth of the Most High. for the last scripture. Let's go to Colossians. Now you should be able to understand this more. Colossians 2 verse 16. Now this is a scripture that those of the Christian persuasion bring out, but the fact is this man was an Israelite, so he wasn't speaking from a non-law perspective. He was speaking according to the law. What he was speaking against were the traditions of men. All right, and this can easily be seen in Colossians 2 verse 8, where he says, "Beware lest any man spoil you through philosophy and vain deceit, after the tradition of men, after the rudiments of the world, and not after Messiah." Now, the Torah, the law, is not a tradition of man. We have specific instruction on what to do. All right? The Torah is not after the rudiments of the world. So when you read Colossians 2 verse 16, it says, "Therefore let no man therefore judge you in meat or in drink or in respect of a holy day or of the new moon or of a Sabbath day." He's talking about those judging you after the tradition of men, just like they tried to judge the Mashiach concerning the Sabbath. And they lied and tried to say he was breaking the Sabbath because they were following the traditions of men. The same with the new moon. And this is for all of you out here who are learning up under someone who's trying to tell you and lie to you and say that the new moon is a Sabbath. It is not. You can work on the new moon, and it is not. You can cook. It is not a Sabbath. And there's also some other traditions that people are lying on in respect of other holy days as well, including meat, mainly meat offerings and things like that. Okay, so that's it on that. And I don't think anyone in their right mind would attempt to come back with a rebuttal or any argument, because it's clearly not mentioned in the Torah. And it's also clearly not mentioned in the prophets that the new moon is a Sabbath. And with that, pray that everyone's been edified, and may Yahweh bless your understanding. Shalom.